And good morning, Malik. Good morning, Enimwa.
Good morning. Good
Morning.
How are we doing this morning?
Good.
We're super excited because it's Maliki's birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Malik. Happy birthday to you.
That'll crowd right here, right now. You engineered this. Thank you.
Happy birthday, bro.
Thank
Let's
you,
be
thank you.
99.7 and even more.
Thank you. Let's start with the Gold Street business. Government targets effective labor regime as post-IMF era begins in April. Petroleum slows producer inflation to 3.4% in January, and new $15 million fertilizer terminal set to restart agri productivity. Those are the stories here. The back page of the Gold Street business. UMB hosts exporters, importers at Trade and Treasury Colloquium. KNUST students win Housing Innovation Challenge. Those are the stories on the back page of the Gold Street business.
On the front page of the Daily Guide, let's crash vigilantism. Nana directs NPP, NDC. Mahama scheming to rig primary. Economy in good shape. Jubilee going solar. And Akufo-Addo visits Burma camp today. That's the front page of the Daily Guide.
I have the new crusading guide, the weekend crusading guide. Roadmap to ending vigilantism. That story anyway just reviewed. Political parties to meet. President urges suggests next week. Despite ban, Galamsey sees Bibiani mines concession. MP DCE stands accused. They stand accused, but they say we don't have any link with them.
On the front page of the Ghanaian Observer, Ghana needs $2 billion agro and industrial investment for city stability. Warrior killed Wasiu. NDC Hawks reveal. Short Commission doing a good job. That's according to NDC's Ofosu Ampofo. Ghanaians hail President Akufo-Addo over SONA 2019. And finally, Akufo-Addo fires NPP NDC to disband vigilantes.
The Herald newspaper, Akufo-Addo ignores city depreciation and Takrady kidnapped girls. Also on the front page of the Herald newspaper, 300,000 NDC delegates elect flag bearer tomorrow. More trouble for disputed Ho Technical University Vice Chancellor.
And on the front page of the Finder, obviously, SONA 2019 trending. There's that story about disbanding vigilantism. Otherwise, I will use legislation to do it. That was what the president said yesterday. The European Union has announced 147 million euro intervention to boost agric in northern Ghana. $51 million secured to complete Kufuor, affordable houses, and basic education to include SHS beginning in September. That's according to President Akufo-Addo.
The Chronicle newspaper has the State of the Nation address also on its front page. Ghana is in good health despite all our challenges as a president. Minority shows respect to Akufo-Addo. Government clears 1.2 billion NHIS debt. The last story on the front page of the Chronicle, 12.7 billion spent on banking crisis. It comes with a photograph of the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta.
Okay, and finally from me on the back page of the Daily Graphic, $15 million fertilizer factory inaugurated in Tema. On the front page of the Daily Graphic, Wisconsin UCC clash today. In finals of Tertiary Business Sense Challenge, new company takes over ECG February 27th. And 5 defendants demand documents from Unibank's receiver.
The Ghanaian Times newspaper, the president's picture is here, bold picture when he was going to Parliament to deliver the State of the Nation address. One more story on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. Government earmarks $1 billion for low-income housing project. Back page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. It is illegal to own firearms without license. A Small Arms Commission. Government urge to resource domestic violence secretariat. This is a story, as Raymond will say, anyone will be very interested in.
So thanks guys for the front pages. Malik, this pronouncement made by the president is probably one of the most memorable moments, wasn't it?
Mr. Speaker, I have asked the leadership of the NPP to extend an invitation to the leaders of the MDC for such a meeting. The security services of the country will be on standby to assist this meeting. If voluntary disbandment by the parties is not feasible, then I will initiate legislation in the matter. Vigorous debate Vigorous debate and the exchange of ideas should be the true basis of political dialogue and competition in our country, not the activities of party vigilante groups.
So, Malik, when you place this by what Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo told Evans, that they are willing to sit with any political party on this matter, it looks like we are making headway.
Yes, it does look like we are making headway, and which was not unexpected, precisely because the politicians are rational people. Usually when the general populace is against something, all of them will go along with that. You hardly would find them take a position against the position of the general populace. So it was expected. It was also expected. It was exciting because the president was emphatic. And in the past, we have heard political leaders talk about this subject of militialism, as we now call it. But now you have an emphatic statement made to the Parliament of Ghana that this has to be dealt with. And the president said if the political leaders do not meet to deal with this, he is bringing a legislation to Parliament to deal with it. Remember, when one of the police officers appeared before the Emil Short Commission, which is hearing the violence and all related matters, he was asked specifically about disbanding these groups. And he said that, well, disbanding them alone may not be the solution. There must be a legislation to deal with this. So that ties in with what the president is suggesting, that if the political leaders fail, he will bring a legislation, and that legislation will then cripple these groups and make it impossible for anyone to constitute themselves into such groups.
But Malik, we cannot ignore what Haruna Idrisu, the minority leader, said after this, that there is sufficient legislation in there. So we referred to Section 200A of the Criminal and Other Offences Act. This amendment was put in the year 2012. Okay, it deals with groups of people breaking the law. And if you look even specifically at some of the things that have happened in the past, shooting is a crime, causing harm is a crime, aiding and abetting is a crime. So
in all of those things, yes, so we know, I mean, there are sufficient laws. As far as the crimes are concerned, there are sufficient laws to prosecute them. I think what the president is talking about and what the policeman may have been contemplating is a law which may make it unlawful, because currently you have a constitutional right to association and all of that. Everybody enjoys that right. Maybe associations that have political objectives that may lead to, because let's be fair, these groups do not commit crimes every day. And in fact, they spend more times without committing crimes than they spend committing crimes. But of course, when they commit one crime, it affects everyone. Okay. And the state must not permit or tolerate that. So it's the reason why it's been suggested that there need to be a legislation specifically for this. But when crimes are committed, there are already sufficient laws to deal with that.
Exactly. So perhaps we need the legislation anyway, whether or not the parties agree, so that it will be illegal for political parties to have security organizations. That will be a way for it.
Absolutely.
And of course, Sami Oku, the organizer of the NPP, was telling Evans last night on Newsnight that a number of the national executives of the NPP are not in the country. And so when they do come, he's already communicating to them, but they can only officially make a decision when they come back, so that they will begin the process that the president has asked them to do, that is to reach out to the various political parties, well, mainly the NDC, and then have that jaw. But security is not the only thing President Akufo-Addo mentioned.
He said a lot more other things, and I think one of the outstanding things he spoke about was housing, and government launching a 1 billion Ghana cedis housing project for low-income groups. And you know that over the years, our governments have sought to do this. Yesterday, he said that a consortium of banks have raised $50 million to deal with the housing units that were started under the Kufuor government in 2006. And there were some in Accra, in Ho, in Tamale, and Kumasi, and many other regional capitals. And the ones that were in Accra, we know that Senate was asked to take care of that. He says $51 million is being raised to deal with the Tamale and Ho and other ones. And again, Daniel, we had this discussion last week. These were projects that were started in 2006. It's been 13 years. We still have not completed them. And if it takes such a long time to complete these projects, what tends to happen is that the prices will go up, and they will be priced out of the region where low-income earners can afford them.
Exactly.
Maybe the reason why the president is talking about, 1 billion to be launched, 1 billion housing project to be launched for low-income earners, except to say that these affordable houses that were started in 2006, the thinking at the time was that those two were meant for low-income earners. But because we didn't complete them in good time, I'm sure by this time, they are priced out of reach for these low-income earners.
Let's not ignore the fact that Samson Ehim, Member of Parliament for Bodi in the Western North region, mentioned that
there
is
Deputy
no...
Minister for
Works and Housing. He mentioned that there is no affordable housing projects by former President Kufuor in Ho. I would also like to ask Mr. Kweku Kwarteng, Deputy Finance Minister, when he joins us today, and the financing, this 1 billion, where are we going to find it? Have we already made space for it in the budget? And, how, looking at the fact that we often do not meet our revenue target, how are we going to fund it so that next year we have results to show Ghanaians? But that's about yesterday anymore. Let's talk about tomorrow.
Yes, so tomorrow we're expecting about 280,000 delegates of the NDC to cast their votes to elect a flag bearer. We seem to have been waiting for this for a long time, haven't we? There have been a few postponements. So yes, that's happening tomorrow. It's been organized by the country's electoral body, the EC. There's 7 aspirants. I'm sure you know them, so I don't have to go through them. The Deputy General Secretary of the party has been speaking. He says that all the necessary arrangements have been put in place to ensure a smooth, free and fair election. The police have also issued a notice. They have issued a warning, actually, that they will not tolerate or permit any person or group of individuals who would parade themselves as external security. Also, especially focusing on registered or unregistered motorbikes. They will not be allowed at the various voting centers. Other provisions that are made are those who are outside of the country. This provision has been made for them to be able to vote. So if you're outside of Ghana, then that's fine.
So
and let me just go through the
yes.
aspirants here. So we have former President John Dramani Mahama, we have Mr. Alban Bakbin, we have Professor Joshua Alabi, we have Mr. Sylvester Mensah, we have Mr. Ekospio Gabra, Alhaji Nuruddin Idrisu, and Mr. Gusi Tano.
Did the huge amounts the amount that they were required to pay ward off many
the
of
reduced
them?
amount or the initial amount?
Both. Because my brother Stephen Atubiga, I thought he was running.
He said that the amount is even small for him, but I think he has changed his mind about running.
And he okay. But you see,
because he said he can even pay more, He said he's giving more to delegates than any of the other people when he goes to delegates.
Because he's a private latrician. Anyway, but it is good that the police are saying no persons who come here purporting to be security persons will be tolerated. And it's even better that the party itself, Ofosu Ampofu, said that no candidate is expected to come to the elections with any persons who disguise themselves as security persons.
Okay.
The security is left entirely in the hands of the police. And I think that that's the beginning of the end of these groups. Because if the parties themselves say, we no longer will use these people, because it is the parties that constitute them, and say that they are using them for security purposes. If the party now will rely on the police and trust the police to do their job, and the police have not proven incapable of doing their job.
I was just going to say that then now the focus is also going to be on the police to prove that they're capable.
But the police have actually not proven incapable of doing this.
Exactly.
No, they haven't.
It is just
in the days that we did not have organized groups like this, the police were organizing, were in charge of security. We had no problems at all. But speaking of the police, Malik, the Dome Kwabenya police station cell break, there's an update there.
Yes, so you know that some persons were arrested in respect of that case after the police officer there was murdered in that jailbreak. It was expected that those persons would be tried for murder because of the death of the police officer. But the Ghanaian Times is reporting that 13 of the accused persons who are being tried at an Accra Circuit Court are actually not being tried in respect of the murder of the police officer. They are being tried in respect of some other offences relating to the jailbreak rather than the murder. The murder is there's one other person, you know that at the time there was this guy who did the shooting. It is that person who is being tried for the murder, but the 13 others are being tried for other offenses.
Okay. So someone is being tried for the murder. That's the most important thing. Yeah. Okay. Anyone? A madman is destroying cars in Kumasi.
Yes. So the Daily Guide is calling him mentally retarded. I'm not sure if that's a correct diagnosis. And when you listen to what he did, so what this madman did was that he smeared his body with excreta. So it was planned, it was premeditated. He smeared his body with excreta, went into a security zone. There were some cars parked behind the Ashanti Regional Police Quarters, and he began to smash the windscreens and the back screen as well with cement blocks. For no apparent reason. There was no provocation. There was nothing to suggest why he was doing it. Some people were shouting at him to stop. He didn't stop. And the Daily Guide is reporting that after smashing the windscreen of the 3 vehicles, he appeared satisfied and moved a few meters from the locations. Now, eyewitnesses were questioning why the city authorities would allow people suffering from mental disorders to loiter in the city, which is why I picked this story, Malik, because we see people who have all sorts of mental diseases and illnesses walking on the street, and there's so many times when I see them, and even if my window is rolled down, I'd quickly roll up, I'll lock my doors, because I remember a friend of mine said there was one time when she was parked at a traffic light and her car door was open and a madman opened the door and sat inside with her. So I've always had that very traumatic story in my mind. But the thing is, Malik, with correct diagnosis, so many of these people can live very normal lives. We know that, but we also know that we don't allocate a lot of money when it comes to mental health issues in Ghana. The last time we spoke to Dr. Akwesi, he was saying that even what had been allocated to them had not been released. You remember when they were threatening to do this cash and carry in terms of medicine, in terms of food, in terms of all of those things. And so I think it's something that we definitely have to look at. Especially heartbreaking for me is the fact that with correct diagnosis, they can lead very, very normal lives. Very normal.
We don't pay too much attention to this, and we have done stories. We have done this show. We've focused on mental health. We've gone to the psychiatric hospital. We've done investigations. I remember investigations Kwete United did in one of the mental facilities, I think in the central region also, where the drugs were being sold when in fact they were not supposed to be sold. Sometimes the drugs are not even available. Yeah. And this happens all the time. Okay, so Daniel, there is a story. Quite interesting story. Chaco Bena, who gets 36 months for stealing.
Stealing what? He
stole a motorbike.
Did he also try stealing from a police station?
No.
Okay.
He stole a motorbike. This is Kwame Azuma. You should help me with the pronunciation of this. This is Dadjin in the Jomoro district.
Dadjin.
I'm better than anyone with this one.
No, please. You go ahead. Please, you go ahead. I'm not going to.
So this Kwame Azuma guy, he parked a motorbike, and then he goes, takes the motorbikes, and then he just disappears with it. Investigations proved that he was the one who took the motor. He had actually been convicted in the past for a similar offense, and then he did this again. So he was the district court there sentenced him to 36 months imprisonment, and the judge said this is done to deter others from similar offenses. So he's going to jail for stealing a motorbike.
Let's have as much swift justice being dealt.
29-year-old man.
Yeah. I'm just saying that let's see the same speed in dealing with these issues with other crimes that are reported, especially white-collar crimes and corruption. That would also be very encouraging to deter others.
Those tend to be very difficult to prove, the lawyers will tell you. And proof, has to be beyond reasonable doubt. And until that is happening, in these cases, some of these guys, they confess.
Exactly.
But these white-collar crimes, because they are difficult to prove, and usually also because they have the means to procure the services of a lawyer who would defend them.
Okay, so let's do child labor now. Thanks, Malik. Let's do child
Malik,
labor.
so let me tell you a story. I'm sorry it's your birthday. That'll break your heart a little bit. Yesterday, listening to the president, he said that Ghana's fight against child labor has chalked up some modest success. I'm not sure what he meant by
From
modest.
tier 3 to tier 2.
Tier 2, yes, from tier 3 to tier 2 in 2018. I'm not sure if that's acceptable, because child labor is something that's still going on. 2017, the vice president's wife, Samira Baumia, set up the Ghanaians Against Child Abuse social drive. And so we're trying to push this out there, make a little bit more noise about the children who are still on the Volta Lake and fishing, and even the children who are selling pure water. You see them all the time, don't you? Some of them as young as 5, 6, 7. Some of us have nannies and house girls in our house that are very young and should be in school. There's also still child marriage. You remember the story a few weeks ago of the girl who had come from the north to come and be a kayayo just so that she can go and pay her dowry. And so there's still so many harrowing stories when it comes to child labor, child abuse, child trafficking, and all of that. So modest success, okay, but we still need the government to push more a little bit.
And you just heard Enimwa refer to Ghana being upgraded to tier 2 on the U.S. Department of State Trafficking in Persons TIP report for demonstrating increased efforts to prevent human trafficking, protect victims, and prosecute traffickers. Before achieving that feat, Ghana had been consistently placed on a tier 2 watch list, which means we risk being dropped to the tier 3 watch list. Now, if we had gone to tier 3, it means that we would have had an immediate cancellation of U.S. development assistance. So there were a lot of serious implications there. But speaking of trafficking, the kidnapped girls in Takoradi have not been found.
Yeah, they still have not been found.
Yes.
And the president didn't mention them yesterday, which has caused a bit of an uproar.
Yeah, it was not
the
the only thing
family
he
is very
didn't mention. The
disappointed.
CD2 was not mentioned, and that's one of the things that people have focused on.
Affirmative
Yes.
action wasn't mentioned, I don't think, as well.
We don't really focus much on some of these issues. I think that the more we have these conversations on platforms like this, the more they would find space, in the national conversation. That's why we keep talking with series like What Love Is Not, talking about the kidnapped girls. It's been 190 days since the girls went missing, and we are still asking that we bring back our tidy girls. But now it's time for the online news review, and it's brought to you by Zenith Bank. In your best interest, GOIL Good Energy. It's a new year, and it's still good energy with GOIL, your reliable energy partner. Enhancing your engine performance and prolonging the life expectancy of your vehicle should be a top priority. So continue to get the best quality and value for money from GOIL Super XP and Diesel XP, and trusted range of lubricants from our 360 service stations across the country. To all our valued customers, we say thank you. We value our partnership with you, and because of you, we are still number 1 and still CIMG Petroleum Company of the Year. Let's continue the partnership to build our economy. GOIL Good Energy, GOIL proudly Ghanaian. GOIL Yenara Yedia. Go light with Zenith Bank and enjoy rewards from MasterCard. So from now to the end of February 2019, use any MasterCard on a Zenith Bank POS at Marina Mall Supermarket or at the KFC restaurant at Hacho, Osu, Dansoman, East Legon, and at Chimota, and be rewarded with gift vouchers. Don't be left out. Use your MasterCard on a Zenith Bank POS and spend light. Terms and conditions apply. Ask in store for details. Zenith Bank, in your best interest. MyJoyOnline.com says Rawlings is hopeful that the NDC and MPP will heed Ekufado's call to disarm militias. Another strong, powerful voice being added to the hashtag Disband Party Militias Now campaign. New education curricula didn't have our inputs. Nagrat, guys, this is one issue that we must really begin looking at. Remember, we had like a week-long conversation last year on the new education curriculum, and we had a commitment from Deputy Education Minister Dr. Yahweh Duchum telling us about how work is being done on this. We understand it's ready to be launched in September. Nagrat is raising questions that they were not consulted early enough. However, they have been given the document and they've been asked to make input at this stage, and they would be making that input known. So I think it's time for us to extend another invitation.
Is that a consultation?
They wanted to be
because if you have been given the document to make
yeah.
inputs, because the thing has not been launched anyway.
That's true.
Your inputs, if you make inputs, those inputs will be factored in before the
and hopefully then the process won't be delayed.
That is
Absolutely.
true. But they wanted to be involved early enough when they're at the ideation stage, if I can use that expression. Anyway, so the Nigeria elections are tomorrow. And
today's a public holiday in Nigeria.
today's a public holiday in
apparently,
Nigeria.
so that people can travel. and all of that.
Yes. But the BBC.com is asking a question in a notepad. Is the country prepared? Interesting article.
And
there. You
delaying
might
their
want to read it.
election by 1 week cost them $1.5 billion.
Billion?
Yes.
$1 billion.
Yes.
Wow.
Jeez. Do you remember when the district assembly elections were postponed in Ghana?
I
That was
think it
90 million.
Yeah.
That was 90 million.
Yeah, 90 million.
Yes.
Because somebody went to court.
Yes. Led by our MP. Alex Afenyo-Markin. Yes.
He was there. I think it was an assemblyman who went to court, but he was the lawyer for the assemblyman.
Anyway, guys, it's time for the BBC News at 7. It's coming up after this. Stay with us.
Allianz Insurance is